The death toll from the shooting massacre at a gay nightclub in Florida has risen to at least 50 people, that according to officials, making it the worst mass shooting in U.S. history. More than 50 others have been taken to area hospitals. Orlando Mayor Buddy Dyer announced the new death toll at a press conference on late Sunday morning, hours after the initial death toll had been put at 20. There was no immediate word on the conditions of those injured. Confirmation that more than 100 people have been killed and injured makes Sunday's massacre the worst mass shooting in U.S. history. The shooting happened just after 2 a.m. Eastern Time on Sunday when gunfire erupted at the popular Pulse nightclub. About 320 people were inside the venue when the shooting began. It led to an hours-long hostage situation before police stormed the building and killed the perpetrator. The gunman has been identified as 29-year-old Omar Mateen, an American citizen who lived in St. Port Lucie and was born in New York, but whose family is originally from Afghanistan. Investigators believe Mateen may have had ties to Islamic terrorism.
Dead after a suspected Islamic extremist opened fire overnight in the prominent gay Orlando nightclub, Pulse. Law enforcement identified the shooter, who used an assault rifle and a handgun, as U.S. citizen Omar Mateen, who was a resident of Port St. Lucie, Florida. The gunman, born to Afghan parents, was carrying a suspicious device, possibly a suicide vest.
Well, here's that breaking news update that we promised you just moments ago. Now, we can see just in on our ABC 15 News Twitter here, Pulse nightclub shooter now identified as Omar Mateen of St. Lucie County, Florida. So we can tell you that the FBI says they are investigating this as a possible terror attack here, domestic terrorism. This is something we're going to continue to follow all morning long, but the brand new information just coming into us, the shooter now identified as Omar Mateen of St. Lucie County in Florida.
Understand, this is a watershed moment. This attack, the largest murder attack in U.S. history, is the second biggest terrorist attack after 9/11. I am fearful that already we are hearing talk about this being a hate crime. We're hearing already in the left-wing media the focus on guns. This isn't a tragedy like an Amtrak train being derailed, nor is it a hate crime. This is part and parcel of the jihadi ideological strategy. Look at Bataclan, look at Paris, look at London, look at Brussels, look at the attack in San Bernardino. This is all part of a strategy. Homosexuals are being thrown off roofs of tall buildings by ISIS in the Middle East. Why? Because they're homosexuals. If we get this wrong, if the administration tries to paint this as some kind of homegrown, some kind of hate crime, then they will have demonstrated one thing. They haven't understood the last 15 years and that ISIS is here to kill all infidels, especially the LGBT community.
On the phone for us right now, we want to bring in Orlando Mayor Buddy Dyer. Good morning, Mayor Dyer, and we know that this is such a tragic situation right there in Orlando. I know the situation continues to unfold. What is the message right now that you want to send out to your residents and particularly those across the country?
Well, we experienced a horrific crime here in Orlando overnight. Many lives were lost and many more are going to be affected by having witnessed the event. That we're a strong, resilient community. We need to come together and pray for and lift up the families of the victims, pray for the victims. We had a very coordinated effort among our law enforcement personnel from a number of counties in a hostage situation that actually probably saved dozens of lives. So thank you to the men and women of the Orlando Police Department and the supporting agencies.
And Mayor George Stephanopoulos here, what more can you tell us about the gunman? We learned a lot at that press conference a while ago, saying the gunman was well prepared, had an assault rifle, handgun, maybe another device, and some indications that this person was not from Orlando?
The individual is not from our community. He traveled here to commit his crime.
Do we know where he came from?
I can't say more than the FBI did at this point. They're in charge of that aspect of the investigation, so I don't want to preempt anything on that, but I can tell you he's not from our community.
And the FBI also saying there were some suggestions that he may have had some kind of radical leanings, radical ideology.
I think they confirmed that they believe he acted alone and independent, but that he did have the leanings that you speak of.
Was there any indication before this event? Did you have any sign that there was something brewing?
None whatsoever. We don't know whether he randomly chose the club or chose it for a specific purpose. It's a standalone club with a parking lot, so one thought is that it was more accessible than some of the clubs that would be downtown or more downtown, so we just don't have enough information at this point to know his motivation for his selection of the target.
Mr. Mayor, there was a significant lag time between those first shots, which we believe were around 2 in the morning, and the deadly conclusion to this incident at around 5 in the morning. Do you have a sense of what was going on in between while those hostages were being held? Have you spoken to any of the people who were being held hostage by the gunman?
They are being interviewed. I can tell you that there was text communication between hostages, and there were separate areas in the building. So the gunman had a number of hostages in one restroom area, and then there was a second group of hostages isolated from there. And when we made entry, we were able to rescue, I think, all of the hostages that were being held or that were in this separate area.
And Mayor, we just talked about any indicators. I know the Florida Department of Law Enforcement moments ago said that they're looking into lone wolves or associates. Do we have any more clarification or clarity on that?
We have no indication that he had any associates.
And we talked about I know George mentioned he was not from the area. Could you tell us, was he a citizen of the United States?
I do not have that information.
So at approximately 02:02 hours this morning, we had an officer working at Pulse nightclub who responded to shots fired. Our officer engaged in a gun battle with that suspect. The suspect at some point went back inside the club where more shots were fired. This did turn into a hostage situation. From there, obviously multiple officers from various agencies responded. SWAT team responded. At approximately 0500 hours this morning, the decision was made to rescue hostages that were in there. Our SWAT officers exchanged gunfire with the suspect. The suspect is dead. He appeared to be carrying a rifle, an assault-type rifle, and a handgun, and had some type of device on him. That's what we're doing right now, checking the area for devices.
This is an incident, as I see it, that we can certainly classify as a domestic terror incident.
At this time, at this particular time, there's no reason to believe, we have no credible or singular information to suggest that there's any further threat to Orlando or the surrounding area or anywhere else as it relates to this particular incident.
This is an ABC News special report.
And we are back on the air right now. Police and FBI officials have come to the podium in Orlando, Florida. Let's listen in.
Focus is going to be on identifying the victims and notifying the families. We're setting up a hotline for concerned family members. There's 407-246-4357. The identification process may take some time, so we ask for your patience because we want to be accurate. Concerned family members can call the hotline, however, and let them know that you have someone that you are concerned about. I continue to be so proud of our community, the support that is shown, the response that has been made. I'm also thankful to entities from all around the country and all over the state of Florida. The governor has made all the resources of the state of Florida available. Orange County has made all of their resources available. We have assistance from the White House. So every possible asset we have brought to bear. Mayor Jacobs.
Thank you, Mayor Dyer. Of course, let me start with expressing my sympathy for the families, for the loved ones of those who we have lost in the last 24 hours. We know that this affects a large segment of our community. We know that we have a very close-knit LGBT community who has been dramatically impacted by this. So to everyone who is impacted, I want you to know that our thoughts and prayers are with you, and that we are a united community, and that what we saw last night does not reflect what we feel in our hearts and our souls here in Orange County. And I am calling on every citizen here in Orange County to never forget that we stand together in times of adversity, but we don't just stand together as the city of Orlando and Orange County. We stand together as a country. We have heard from Texas, we have heard from states all across the country wanting to know what they can do to help. So when evil like this comes to our community, we respond in force. I guarantee you we will do that again. And thank you all for everything that you do to make this such a wonderful place to be. We know it's going to take time to be able to answer the questions of the loved ones, and there's nothing more difficult than waiting to find out the status of the people that you love. Please be patient. We're doing our best. Thank you.
As Mayor Dyer said, at this point, the nightclub Pulse has been cleared and deemed safe of any devices. We're in the process of clearing the suspect's vehicle, which is a van right outside. And we ask that people be patient. Unfortunately, there are many victims inside the club, but like was said, our priority will be on the identification of the victims, and notification of the next of kin. I also want to take this opportunity to thank all the outpouring of law enforcement support from as far away as Boston and Chicago that let us use their resources if needed. And of course, great community support from the Central Florida law enforcement community as well. I also want to commend the heroic and courageous actions of the initial responding officers who exchanged gunfire with the suspect, and also the heroic and courageous actions of our SWAT team who rescued at least 30 victims, possible victims, and brought them to safety.
So, what brought us to Orlando?
But I don't know where my son is. No one can tell me where my son is. If he's been shot, if he's dead, no one knows. He's not answering the phone. But he was sitting right next to his boyfriend, and his boyfriend definitely was shot with multiple gunshots and taken in the ambulance.
Right there by the lounge, and all I was hearing the bang, bang, bang. I thought it was part of a song. Maybe Ying Twins, it sounds like something they'd come out with. And then when you turn around, the person next to you is like screaming. There's blood splattering. I didn't know if it was mine or somebody else's, but it was blood splattered on me, and I just remember just the screaming, and I was like, are you kidding me? Oh my God. So I dropped down and I'm crawling out, and I'm just like, oh my God, please, 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 please. And all I could see was looking up because people were stepping on each other, because I got stepped on a couple times, and I was just like, oh please, just please make it out, please, please. And then when I did, I saw people shot. I saw blood everywhere. There was blood all over me. I didn't know if it was my blood. I didn't know. So I was checking my whole body. When I got out, I realized it wasn't mine. It was somebody else's. And then there was just people in the streets that were shot, and they were laying down, and they were tagging them red and yellow. They were putting people in the back of trucks because they couldn't get the ambulance or get enough people to come in. So those that were tagged yellow, I remember, were being put in the back of trucks and escorted if they could walk. The person I was with was shot in the back. I had to take my bandana off and tie it up, put it in the bullet hole that was in his back so that he wasn't bleeding, because he was bleeding so bad his whole pant leg was red, and it was so soaked. It was just, my hands were just covered, and I didn't know what to do but just stand there and tell him to be strong. And there was somebody else who was on dispatch who had already called 911, was helping, and so I was helping him try to make sure he was okay, holding his hand, telling him he's gonna be okay, he's gonna be okay. All I was hearing the bang, bang, bang. I thought it was part of a song. Maybe Ying Twins, it sounds like something they'd come out with. And then when you turn around, the person next to you is like screaming. There's blood splattering. I didn't know if it was mine or somebody else's, but when I got out, I realized it wasn't mine. It was somebody else's. The person I was with was shot in the back. I had to take my bandana off and tie it up, put it in in the bullet hole that was in his back so that he wasn't bleeding, because he was bleeding so bad his whole pant leg was red, and it was so soaked. It was just, my hands were just covered, and I didn't know what to do but just stand there and tell him to be strong. And there was somebody else who was on dispatch who had already called 911, was helping, and so I was helping him try to make sure he was okay, holding his hand, telling him it's gonna be okay, it's gonna be okay. And all this is just, it's devastating, because when you hear helicopters and you see the fire sticks in the street and you see the dogs, and you're just like, this can't be real. It's like the movies. It's like, you know, when you come from a scary movie based on true events and then you come to a bar and you're actually part of an event, it's not something you want to be a part of at all.
He's in the women's bathroom with the hostage. He's hostage from the shooter.
How did you find out?
He was texting me and called me.
What did he tell you exactly?
That the shooter has them in the women's bathroom hostage and he's gonna die. Well, we was talking and I made him get off the phone because I had dispatcher on one phone and him on another one. And he said he didn't want to look at the man because he might look and get shot. Yeah. So I told him to hang up and text. So we was asking him, the dispatcher had me asking him questions. Yeah. You know, is everybody all right? He said no, people are hurt. Mm-hmm. And then he said he has us and he's going to kill us. And that was it.
Look at that, just shooting back and forth. That is crazy. Look at this.
Let's go.
Llama Alfredo. He's telling you to come. Oh my God, they're all shooting back and forth. Let's go. Look at that, just shooting back and forth. That is crazy. Look at this. Llama Alfredo. He's telling you to come. Oh my God, they're all shooting back and forth.
Let's go.